Welcome to today's Explainer. We're about to dive into a concept so foundational and honestly so deeply embedded in your daily existence that truly grasping it is going to absolutely shatter the illusion of your reality. We're going to pull back the curtain on the invisible systems that secretly run the show, the ones governing our choices, our beliefs, and even a raw intelligence. Believe me, this isn't just some abstract theory. We're talking about the actual hidden software running your entire life. All right, let's get right into it. To really understand how systems control us, we need to travel back to a genuinely terrifying moment in human history. Picture this. It's September 26, 1983. The Cold War is at its absolute peak. Inside the Soviet Union's nuclear command center, it's just past midnight, and suddenly, the alarms start screaming. Every single screen flashes red. The satellite systems are transmitting an incredibly horrifying signal. An American nuclear missile is heading straight for Soviet territory. Then another, and another. Exactly 5 nuclear missiles have just been detected. Now, the computer system's protocol was rigid and absolute. Nuclear attack confirmed. Report the launch immediately and initiate a counterstrike. In a matter of minutes, hundreds of nuclear missiles would be launched at America, effectively kicking off World War III. On duty that night was Lieutenant Colonel Stanislav Petrov. And here's the thing, his job wasn't to make decisions. His job was to blindly execute the system's orders. He was staring down an impossible world-ending choice. Follow the machine's perfect logic and end humanity, or dare to actually question the system itself? Well, Petrov noticed his own panic, and he did something incredible. He took a breath. He paused. He asked a question the computer was quite literally never programmed to ask. If America were actually starting a global nuclear war, why on earth would they only send 5 missiles? Logically, a first strike would involve hundreds of warheads, right? So Petrov made a seemingly impossible decision. He flat out ignored the blaring alarms and reported it up the chain as a false alarm. And he was right. The satellite had mistaken sunlight reflecting off high-altitude clouds for missile launches. Petrov saved humanity that night because he displayed what we call metacognitive intelligence. He rationally observed a rigid system, spotted its blind spot, and manually hit override. So, what does a Cold War crisis have to do with you and me? The implications are actually profound. Petrov overrode a massive computer system, but the most powerful, dangerous system of all isn't some military network. It's the biological system sitting right inside your own skull, the human brain. We all love to think we're sitting comfortably in the driver's seat of our lives, don't we? But the truth is, your free will is largely an illusion. We are governed by internal, invisible systems that operate entirely without our conscious permission. You see, to save precious energy, our brain doesn't actually process every single moment fresh. Instead, it relies on automated patterns. Let's call them loops. When someone gives you a piece of criticism and you instantly snap back and get defensive, that's your ego loop firing on pure autopilot. When you put off a really tough task just to feel the temporary relief of procrastinating, that's your fear loop. And when you pick up your phone just to check one quick message and suddenly realize you've been mindlessly scrolling for an hour? Yep, that's a habit loop. Research from Duke University actually shows that nearly 45% of our daily behavior is driven entirely by these mindless habits. We think we're making active choices, but a lot of the time, we're just running on a loop. To grasp just how deep this illusion goes, you have to know about the hollow mask illusion. It's totally wild. If you take a mask of a face that is hollow, meaning it curves inward, and you spin it around, your brain will still process it as a normal, outward projecting face. Even when physical reality proves without a doubt that the face is concave, your brain literally distorts your vision to make it look convex. Why does it do that? Because your brain has spent a lifetime seeing faces that point outward. It strongly prefers its own familiar, predictable pattern over the actual reality sitting right in front of your eyes. And this brings us right to the cutting edge of modern neuroscience. We hear a lot these days about AI hallucinating. You know, when a model doesn't quite know an answer, so it just predicts the next logical word based on its training data, automatically filling in the gaps. Well, thanks to a concept called predictive processing, we now know your brain acts remarkably like an AI hallucinating. Your brain doesn't directly experience reality. It operates more like a high-tech simulator, constantly predicting what the very next moment will look and feel like, and occasionally even distorting your raw sensory signals just to make reality match up with its expectations. The absolutely crucial takeaway here is that your brain prioritizes survival, stability, and prediction way over the absolute truth. It desperately wants to minimize the gap between what it expects to happen and what actually happens. And this predictive power is so incredibly strong that it can literally alter your biology. Look at the placebo effect. A patient takes a totally fake pill, but because their brain strongly predicts they're going to heal, it actually triggers the body to physically lower blood pressure and reduce pain. Or think about phantom pain experiments. Participants watch a hammer swing toward a fake rubber hand, and they literally feel a physical shock of pain, purely because the brain predicted the impact. Your expectations are literally dictating your physical reality. Okay, so if the brain has all these different habit loops, fear loops, and predictive models running all at the same time, how does it keep track of it all without wasting massive amounts of energy? It compresses every single one of them into one central master predictive model. Think of it as the master operating system for your entire mind. We have a very common name for this OS: identity. Identity isn't just some fluffy philosophical concept. It is the core master filter through which you interpret the entire world. It dictates which thoughts are safe, which loops to run, and exactly how you react to every single thing around you.
So what happens when that master OS feels threatened? There was this incredibly fascinating experiment done by researchers. They gave highly intelligent participants a complex statistics problem about whether a certain skin cream cured rashes. Unsurprisingly, the people with high math skills solved it perfectly. But then, the researchers switched things up. They kept the math exactly the same, but changed the data labels, so the problem was suddenly about whether gun control reduces crime, obviously a highly polarizing political issue. And guess what? Suddenly, those exact same mathematical experts completely failed to interpret the data correctly.
The math didn't change one bit. What changed was the threat to their identity. When the data contradicted their political worldview, their brains essentially disabled their logical processing just to protect their identity. The great irony here is that high IQ people often make really stupid mistakes. Why? Because they don't always use their intelligence to seek the truth. They use it to build better arguments to defend their pre-existing identity. This explains perfectly why our biggest debates, whether they're about politics, religion, or culture, are almost never actually about logic. They are intense neurological battles to protect our predictive models. Which brings up a slightly uncomfortable question for all of us. Are your decisions truly yours? Or are they just your identity speaking? From the time you were a kid, society has been silently programming your operating system. We absorb all these massive narratives like my culture is the best or my worth is tied strictly to my grades and my performance at work. We deeply internalize that fear of what will people say if I fail. And today, we're constantly comparing our messy, behind-the-scenes lives to the polished highlight reels of digital reality. By the time you hit your early 20s, all these external inputs have basically crystallized into a rigid identity, and it happens completely without your conscious consent. To break free from all this programming, we really need to redefine what intelligence actually is. Let's go way back, about 2.4 billion years ago. The Earth was going through a massive crisis. Oxygen flooded the atmosphere, and to almost all existing life at the time, oxygen was a deadly poison. But then came the turning point. A brand new type of bacteria evolved. And it didn't just survive the poison, it learned to consume it as fuel. You and I are sitting here today breathing oxygen simply because our microscopic ancestors successfully adapted. Nature literally does not care about your IQ score. It only cares about adaptation. And that leads us to the ultimate realization of this explainer. True intelligence, what we can call adaptive intelligence, isn't about raw processing power or memorizing a bunch of facts. It's that rare, incredible ability to break out of the rigid trap of your own identity so you can continuously adapt to whatever tests reality throws your way. If your identity is fluid and flexible, you can reshape yourself to achieve your goals, find genuine fulfillment, and overcome crises. So the million-dollar question is, how do we actually upgrade our mental operating system to achieve this? Well, you can't just think your way into a new identity. Remember, identity is a structural system. It's a loop. So to change it, you have to replace the entire feedback loop itself. Based on deep scientific research, there's a 3-step adaptation loop you can use to completely rewire your neural network. It involves shifting your mindset, radically restructuring your environment, and utilizing the undeniable power of repeated behavior. Let's break down each of these steps right now so you can actually start applying this today. Step 1 starts with adopting what's known as the Bayesian mindset. If you listen to major innovators like Elon Musk, you'll notice they constantly talk in terms of probabilities. They don't view their internal beliefs as absolute, unshakable facts. They see them as hypotheses, just waiting to be tested. When you tell yourself, I'm just bad at public speaking or I'm terrible at math, you're treating a limitation like it's a concrete fact. But a Bayesian thinker says, my hypothesis is that I'm bad at math. Let me take an action, test it out, get some feedback, and update my probability. Doing this creates an incredibly flexible, scientifically grounded identity.
Step 2 requires us to acknowledge a pretty hard truth. Your identity is shaped way more by your environment than by your own internal logic. Take a look at the success rates for quitting smoking. When people try to quit completely solo, relying purely on their own willpower, their success rate is a dismal 5 to 8%. But when they join a support community, meaning they alter their social environment, their success rate dramatically jumps to 15 to 25%. If you want to change your identity, you have to physically and digitally surround yourself with an environment that completely normalizes the new identity you're trying to build.
And step 3 is where the real rewiring happens: repeated behavior. There's a concept in psychology called self-perception theory, and it is a total game changer. It states that we don't just act based on who we are, we actually figure out who we are based on how we act. Your brain literally observes your actions and then infers your identity from them. If you use pure willpower to go to the gym just once, nothing really changes. But if you implement repeated actions, even tiny, small ones, your brain observes this pattern and eventually updates the master model. It says, oh, I see we exercise every single morning now. I guess I am a health-conscious person. Action precedes identity every single time.
To make all this super actionable for you, here is a highly practical tool, the Identity Journal Framework. It's simple. First, write down the specific, flexible identity you want to adopt. Second, at the end of each day, write down the actual behavioral evidence you provided for it that day. And third, conduct a quick gap analysis. Where did your old automated loops try to hijack your day? By making this a daily habit, you literally pull those invisible systems out of the dark and put them right into your conscious control.
We have covered a tremendous amount of ground in this explainer today, all the way from Soviet missile crises to the deepest neurological illusions of the human brain. The fundamental reality is that your brain is always going to seek the easiest, most familiar loop. It's going to fight hard to defend its original programming. So as we wrap things up today, I want to leave you with a thought that I really hope lingers with you long after we're done here. Take a hard look at your daily habits, your sudden emotional reactions, and your deepest political or social beliefs. And ask yourself, who is the real boss of your life? Is it you, or is it your identity?